So this is about pedagogical monitoring of task design and task implementation. Let me start with an almost rhetorical question. Don't all teachers want to work with tasks that are motivating for their learners and help them reach their learning goals? Yes. Yes. And a maybe less rhetorical question, is it easy to get this done? No. And people have been working on this in different stances. Creating tasks for the foreign language classroom is not at all trivial, and gamified intercultural telecollaboration makes things even more demanding. As a teacher, you need to have more juggling elements under your control. Now, TeCoLa task development can proceed for teachers, can proceed in two ways. Either you adapt existing tasks, adapt them to your own environment and needs, or you create a task from scratch. And of course, there are steps in between. Examples which you could take as they are, or which you could adapt to your needs and environments, or use as a source of inspiration, are available in our TeCoLa Open Educational Resource Pool. And this is still under development. Here are a few tasks. I can't give you the full description of different types. For instance, talking about personal, controversial or intercultural issues. The focus is very much on communicative exchange. And remember, there were a few questions concerning the virtual world. All this is about bringing students, pupils from different countries into contact with each other, either through chat or forum or video communication in a video conference system or in a virtual world. The virtual world has the additional advantage that you can place objects with information, videos, pictures throughout the world as material, as stimuli for discussion, for interaction, for doing things together. Okay? Being polite or rude, here the focus is on language for intercultural interaction, an interesting sport, fashion, environment, waste avoidance. Here the focus is more on, well, learning the language in connection with content, CLIL, content and language integrated learning. We make a distinction between CLIL in small letters and CLIL in capital letters. CLIL in capital letters would be the CLIL classroom, where the subject is geography or biology in our country, in Germany, in English, or maybe in French. You maybe don't have this in the UK, biology in Spanish. Maybe you have, I don't know. But you have CLIL in small letters in the everyday foreign language classroom, where the main focus is not in a particular part of your teaching on grammar or something, but it's on a certain subject, geography, culture, and the things, and talking and communicating is more in the foreground. Role-playing in TeCoLa's virtual world is another type of task. Now, whether it's adaptation or creation from scratch, teachers want to ensure a satisfactory pedagogical fit between tasks, their tasks, and pedagogical objectives and requirements, their pedagogical objectives and requirements. This is where TeCoLa task monitoring comes in. It helps teachers to specify monitoring criteria, their own monitoring criteria based on their own pedagogical objectives and requirements, to keep an eye on these requirements throughout the entire cycle of creating, executing, and evaluating tasks, and to follow a flexible, goal-driven and strategic monitoring procedure. And with regard to a telecollaboration exchange, you are working together with a teacher in France or Germany or Spain, and you have to do this together, right? So you have to find a common ground. So teachers need to compare and align their respective learning environments, which essentially involves discussing and agreeing the mutual or the respective pedagogic objectives and requirements, and then you have to find a common ground. All this is roughly covered by what we call pedagogical approach. Okay? So never start a telecollaboration exchange with a teacher and a school in another country without making sure that you are pedagogically on the same ground. Right? Now, this is supposed to help you a bit. In TeCoLa, we have certain pedagogical objectives, learning objectives, intercultural, authentic intercultural communication practice. And this is where we are very, very limited in the face-to-face classroom, even if we are ingenious, communicative teachers. Bringing students from different countries into contact with each other creates opportunities for authentic intercultural communication practice. There is also intercultural communicative competence development with regard to being open, being empathetic, helping each other. All these things are very important for communicative success. Mind you, not only in truly intercultural settings, also in our everyday lives, right now, right? You are collaborating with me. You are listening, and that's an active part on your side. Language learning through communication and collaboration is, of course, a very important element, and content and language integrated learning, CLIL, as I mentioned before. Now, all these pedagogical objectives, there's not a one-to-one correspondence between these objectives and tasks. A task may have a main focus on one or maybe two objectives, and other objectives come in. There's always, in our telecollaborations, communicative interaction and practice, there's always collaboration, but maybe to a different extent. Focus on language learning to a different extent. Content and language to a different extent. Talking about this personal and intercultural issues. Here the focus is clearly on authentic practice, and it is on, we designed certain task elements here that help and stimulate students to pay attention to being open and listening to the other, and being, well, maybe comforting if the other has problems. And we experienced things like this in our previous exchanges. Now, the same for role-playing in a TeCoLa virtual world. Focus is on intercultural communication practice. Being polite or rude, focus is on language learning through communication, and collaboration. And these three here, fashion, environment, sports, have a focus on, a small letter skill, CLIL. These were the pedagogical objectives, but there are what we call pedagogical task requirements, principles and requirements that are very essential to keep an eye on. They, in a way, reflect your pedagogical approach. And the extent to which you pay attention to collaboration, authenticity, diversity, and these things, I mean, there's no rule for doing it in a certain way. You do it your way. But the way you do it, the emphasis you give to the various criteria and requirements, they reflect your pedagogic approach. And this is where you need to find a common ground as well, not only with regard to the learning objectives, but with regard to these requirements, a common ground with your partner teacher as well. Now, gamified telecollaboration. Of course, TeCoLa is driven by the assumption that using these tools, virtual worlds, video communication, chat, and so on and so forth, that this provides teachers with excellent opportunities to support and enhance the intercultural quality, the communicative quality, the motivational quality of their teaching and learning beyond what is possible in the face-to-face classroom. And at the same time, you need to be aware of the interaction and the integration between the two. You have come across the term blended learning. It is never a telecollaboration on its own. It's always combined, integrated with classroom activities. In classroom activities, that is where it all begins. This is very important. Now, collaboration, authentication, autonomy. Well, these are cornerstone requirements and principles of any pedagogical, of any communicative approach, in particular, task-based learning, of course. So we built this into our project. Collaboration has a strong focus, collaborative learning from communicative interaction, which is collaborative, to collaborative knowledge explorations, to creating collaborative writing, to collaboratively creating a poster presentation, a PowerPoint presentation, or a video. Appropriation. We feel that the more authentic and collaborative activities are, the easier it is for pupils to make the tasks their own. This is where appropriation comes in, and it's closely linked to engagement. The more of all this, the more engaged, in a positive sense, students will be during task execution. Diversity is an important issue for us in many, many respects, but this concerns, well, pedagogically trivial things. I mean, you are all familiar with this. There are weaker students. They need scaffolding. They need help. They need a vocabulary list. And with regard to diversity, catering for diversity needs, again, telecollaboration offers a tremendous potential beyond what is possible in the classroom. Okay? Assessment, final word, usually we think of assessment in connection with marking, which is essential, of course. Sometimes it's too essential in our pedagogic context. We put a focus on assessment for learning. Activities, assessment activities, self-assessment, peer assessment, teacher-driven assessment that promotes learning, reflective interviews, reflective or portfolios, things like this. But my time is up. Here you have it all in one picture, and I thank you very much for your attention.